Welcome to another episode of Empowering Single Mothers. I'm your co-host, Lisa McHale, and I've got my lovely co-host on the West Coast, Wendy Bloom, on the line here with us too. And we've got a very special guest today, Leanne Nugent.
Hi.
Welcome.
Welcome, Dan.
Thanks. Excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
For sure.
So,
okay, Wendy.
Yeah. So today we're really sitting in our abundance and our blessed lives, and we're going to give you some insight onto our own family dynamics, as well as the journey that we've each taken to get to where we are. And I'm really excited to have Leanne here and get started with that.
Awesome. Welcome,
So
Leanne.
exciting.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right. So where to begin? Should we start with where I'm at right now?
Yeah, like where are you located?
All right.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Yeah.
Sure. So Leanne Nugent, not remarried. So I have a second life partner. This is the labeling and the framing that we have. So second life partner. I have a 15-year-old son with my first partner, and my second partner has a son of his own, 23 years old, who lives on his own now. Yeah, so my son shares his time between myself and my ex, and that's how we've got it set up now.
That's beautiful. So he lives with you and your current partner. I know
Yep.
sometimes you refer to him as your husband, so we can call him.
We'll call him my husband.
You
It's
call him your
easier.
husband. Yeah. Because I'm like, that's what you normally call him. So your husband,
Yeah.
and then your son live together, and then your son also goes to his dad's, and then
Every weekend. Yeah.
every weekend. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I guess, do you want to share a little bit more, or should I go ahead and share my dynamics? And Wendy, do you want to share just like high level where we're at?
I think that, the dynamics sharing first would be great. And then we do our journeys individually in a longer period.
Okay, cool. So you want to go?
Me? Okay,
Yeah.
sure. So I live on the Central Coast in Central Coast in California. I just moved into a new home that I'm incredibly grateful for. It accommodates my very large family, which consists of my 3 children, 2 daughters that are 11 and 16, and a son that's 23, still lives at home. And then my second ex-husband, and so he's the father of my 2 daughters, and then also his brother and my niece, who is his brother's daughter, and we all live together. And so I'm very grateful for our family dynamic.
I love it. It's way more complex than mine. Single mother based out of Toronto. And I have an 11-year-old daughter that I have with me 24/7. We have no contact with my ex, her biological dad. So mine is probably the easiest. And so let's do another round. Like, tell us about how you got to your journey and just what was your journey to becoming a single mom, and not necessarily being a single mom because you guys have got supports, right?
Yeah. So my transition from, it was interesting because my son's father and I were actually trying to break up when we had our son. So it was already a relationship that was already rocky. But we gave 3 more years a shot, raised him together, and then finally made the decision to separate. But that decision was, filled with a lot of anger, resentment, a lot of deceit, and just not healthy. So there was that first 6-month period, or even like the 6 months leading up to that decision to finally separate, was so unhealthy, where it was, but once you make that decision to just separate, there's already this lift of relief. And it was really good, but there was still a lot of animosity that was going on between us. So as we were thinking about, like custody and like visitation and what are we going to do with this house that we bought together, it was just like a lot to consider, right? So everything was, so from things like, you work too much, like my ex was saying to me that I work too much and that I would make a terrible mother, so he should have full custody. And I'm like, I don't think so. We're not going down that route. I think I should have full custody. I can support him better than you can. I at least have a full-time job that's stable. So we kept going back and forth, and the personal attacks were just, disgusting, I would say. So during that transition, it's like I had to move into this place of just this this can't be my life. I am not living a life of drama. I am not living a life where how can I hurt him is my next best action. No, thank you. This is not a life for me. So I had to move into that place and lead from that example in order for him to follow suit, because he wasn't really kind of picking up on that message like with me verbally saying this. So I thought, I'm just going to have to take action here and just move into this place. So in order to transition and move into that kind of mindset, I had to come back to like, okay, well, who am I really? What am I doing here? Like, what are our goals trying to be here? So the one big thing was, I don't want to waste my money on lawyers. All of that money can be better allocated to our kids' education. Can we agree to that? So there was a lot of, again, back and forth on that. So one thing came clear on that, don't want to waste the money. Second thing was like the health and well-being of our son. Like, I don't want him to be raised and to witness this type of animosity and this type of back and forth. So that was also the very hard line. Like, this is where it's at. Then the final one was, okay, he clearly needs both of his parents. He's fortunate to have parents that love him completely and want to be with him. So why are we fighting over seeing him? Like, we can clearly see him half the time. So let's do that. Like, let's make it as clean as possible. I drew up a parenting agreement. Finally, after this took a year though. So a lot of patience, a lot of fighting, and then finally coming to this place was just like crazy. So once we had all of that kind of sorted out, we were very clear on what the 3 priorities were. And another year after that to have like settling into the routine of when to pick up. And by the way, don't pick up our son when it's my pickup day. Like, what the hell? I was so mad to show up to pick up my son to find out that his dad picked him up already on not his day. So, right, like getting into the routine and knowing where to draw the line and what you can and cannot do took a little bit of time. So I think after year 2, we finally settled into it. And then year 3 was just like, all right, I think we got it. And that's when I felt comfortable to start dating again and just moved into that place of, okay, that part of my life really truly is over. This is my new normal. And yeah, so there was a lot of that going on. A lot of shifting.
So beautiful. So beautiful, because that's what it is, right? It is like the ebbing and the flowing of, what do I want? What is the priority? Okay, I'm taking it really personally right now. Let's just move away and like, what are the top priorities? So I sense that like a lot of your professional skills came into play with driving your agreement and finding your norm. There's also something to be said about like that 2-year, 3-year mark, like something magical happens at year 2 and something magical happens at year 3. Like those anniversaries just keep, they're there to celebrate the win, right? Wendy, did anything come up for you?
Oh gosh, so much.
I saw you taking notes.
Yeah, I did.
It's like I saw her taking notes. She is the queen of like deep thought bomb questions.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, okay, let's hear it.
I'm hoping that I hope that Leanne will receive me well.
I'm excited. Bring it, baby.
So first, I actually had to write it down because I was so just touched. So I really want to just honor your growth. Like, oh my God, just listening to you. Remember, I kind of had shared I wanted to go last. There was a big reason for that. And it's the anger part like allowing yourself to have anger and then recognizing how it's not beneficial.
Mhm.
I was so touched hearing you say that you realize that's not how you wanted to live your life, right? And there's so many, I think, single moms out there and dads and people that just aren't able to see that there is another way for them to be and for them to allow themselves to feel. And it's hard to step away from the things that don't feel fair. And so that honoring your growth, so I want to give you that second. I was really touched. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that it could really help a lot of people, and also anyone that feels that they've done what she's been able to do. Sit with that and give yourselves like a big ass hug, because wow, that's so good, right?
Yeah.
And it triggered for me, forgive me, but because I don't know your situation, and all of the moms out there dealing with narcissists as ex, because it will be much more challenging for you to step away from your anger if you're dealing with a narcissist. So I just want to acknowledge that it does take two, just like it takes two to make a baby. It takes two to create the kind of balance that we all desire. So if you end up in a situation where your other part is a narcissist, don't beat yourself up if you're not able to find that peace. And really, I would say seek some support from other people on how to deal with the narcissism and in healthy ways, because otherwise it will eat at you for forever. So I just, those are the first things. And you also brought up you didn't want your children to witness, that kind of energy between the two of you. And that reminds me of my one of my favorite quotes is, children are like wet cement. Whatever falls on them makes an impression. And so
That's a good one.
especially when we have moments where our kids witness something we don't want them to, if we remember to talk to them about it right away, you can, before the cement dries, you can, flatten the surface or smooth the surface. So just remember, in moments where maybe you did fail and you did have them witness something you didn't want them to, take a second and just talk to your kids and say, look, we were having a hard time and this happened. It's not what we wanted, but it did. And we're sorry that you had to be a part of that. Right. And let them know that they don't have to hold on to that, like that they saw that. So anyway, those are the things that came up so far.
I love that.
I thought you had a question.
Yeah. One
Well,
thing
I
I do want to share,
Mhm.
I want to add, like, now that it's been, 13 years, right? Talking to my teenage son now is I still talk to him about it. And now it's in a different light, because I was about his age when I met his dad. So, retelling the story of our love affair kind of helps me repair any kind of hate and animosity and celebrate the love that we had. Like, even though he was created during the time when we were trying to break up, like, he was still created out of love, right? And that does give him like some sort of, and I'm gonna like get all teary, that it does give him like that sense of, identity that, like, I joke that he was the greatest mistake that I've ever made, but and he laughs about it, but like, it's, at least he knows that there was love there. And I talked to him about, like, what we went through as kids, like, hanging out. And then, yeah, like, it's, I don't know, like, it's okay to talk about your relationships with your kids, I think. And I think it's part of that journey too. So
For
yeah.
sure. Yeah, I was gonna ask that when you said what question was I gonna ask her.
Mm.
I was just gonna ask, so you made it through I was going to say a 6-year period. So 3 years together, 3 years after you found yourself in this place where, okay, I think I could date, because this is at a place where I feel, I want to say safe, but comfortable. What was that next journey to getting to Byron, and what was that like for you?
Yeah. It was interesting because part of that 3-year transition, I needed to make ends meet. So I had to pick up a second job. So there was like just generally no space for any kind of relationship. So, I had some like dated here and there, but nothing ever really serious. But like after, I think it was like maybe a year or two, and Byron and I were friends from before, and we were part of the same circle of friends. So we all went to some party and he was there. And so from there, we exchanged numbers again and we started talking. So we were friends. So he was kind of there, but then kind of not, and in a friend zone kind of place. And, as I was busy, like, so I had to, during that time, I'm like trying to figure out my finances, trying to figure out this stability thing with my ex, and trying to make sure my kid was okay. I wanted a promotion at work, didn't want to work both jobs. So I had to study for like a project management certificate so that I can, be more attractive in the job market and raise my salary and rate and attractiveness, I guess. So yeah, I was very distracted with like getting my finances kind of set. So got into that place where I felt, I guess, like whole again. And
Yep.
and it was so weird because like Byron and I would go on like coffee dates or lunch dates, but never like dinner. And there was like something about, I am not going to go to dinner with you because I have a feeling I know where that will go. So we're not going to do that. You are my friend. We are staying in this friend zone. But then there was just like one day where I was like, let's do dinner. He was just like, okay. And then that was it. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. We had dinner and we've been dating ever since. So I don't know what it was about it. It was just something like everything was like fell into place. Like I felt like I had that rhythm and there was space. And yeah, he fell into it quite nicely.
And
Okay.
here we are. How many years later now?
It's 8 years. I've been with him 8 years. I think we're coming up on 8 years in February. He's the one that knows the dates. Dates blur for me.
How lovely. That is so awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Beautiful, beautiful. I saw you still taking notes there.
I did.
Yeah. Want to go?
Well, that financial striving for security,
Mhm.
and I think, unfortunately, and it doesn't necessarily come with just being a single mom. However, the intensity, I think, is a lot stronger when you're a single mom. But financial security is a huge source of stress for many. And the fact that you said that once you felt a little more financially secure with yourself, look what you attracted. Right? Like
Yep.
that space opened for someone to come in. And I think one of the things that often for me as a single mom early on was that if I did have someone, then that financial burden would be less. And instead of like looking at it as, okay, I can do this on my own, and somebody else coming to the table isn't necessarily the solution for financial comfort. And I think that mindset had to shift for me. I struggled with that one a lot. I think I definitely was thinking that 2 incomes would be a solution, and I'm not saying that you can't have that as part of your goals in
Right.
in your future, but as a as a single mom, if your hope is that someone else is going to save you, then you might always be in a position of looking to be saved.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. And then now here comes some more waterworks for me. So something that I want to share is that I was raised by a single mom. So my parents were divorced. I was, I think, 9 or 10, and I witnessed my mom go through being a single mom. Like, she had like dreams and aspirations for herself, like from a career perspective, and it didn't gel well with my dad. Like, being a woman working at a bank in the 80s, it was tough, right? So she was tough, and that came home with her, right? So she was always, she just didn't know how to tap into the gentler side. She's definitely there now, but I think that is what contributed to the like falling apart based off of the conversations that they've had with me, my parents. That's ultimately was one of the reasons, right? So seeing my mom navigate this and say, well, I don't have a second income. I have to work hard to raise my. So that's where I got that from. I have to acknowledge my mom and instilling that for me. So that's what imprinted for me in my wet cement. So that's very, very interesting. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that back for me.
Yeah.
She's so good at that kind of stuff, though.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Really. I think we're edging on this being a two-parter.
That's okay.
I'm okay with it if you guys are.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that too. Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any other questions or comments for what Leanne shared about her mom? Because I know this was one of our things was, you know, this community is not just for single moms, but for those who know single moms, who have friends that are, you know, like who was raised by a single mom, because that whole traditional dual parent with, you know, that one nuclear family is not the norm. Like when I look at the schools and I look at the children, it's not even 50% anymore. It's like, I don't know what the actual number is. However, I think there are way more single, and when you look globally, there are definitely more single moms. When you look at third world countries, the scale is definitely tipped, and how the single moms prior to us have functioned definitely leaves on us. That I love the wet cement analogy. And so for me, even though my mother wasn't a single mom, my dad worked 2 jobs at one point. And so again, is it the actual physical being, the literal meaning of being a single mom, or just feeling like it? I know moms who are in a relationship, who have a partner living with them, and they feel like they're a single parent, or they get a glimpse of it when the partner goes away for a couple of days. Like, so that burden of it. Myself, I will share and then hand it over to you, Wendy, is like, I come from both sides of my family, a lot of single moms. Either they separated, the partner died, but I come from a long, both sides tradition of women just get it done. And there is a toughness that comes with it, right? There is a survival thing, and transitioning from survival to thriving is such a beautiful, graceful place, right? And so I really want to acknowledge you for just going through that whole cycle generationally, and now having the conversations with your son to be able to, you know, impact the future, right? So my dear Wendy, I shared a little bit there. What do you want to tap into
Oh
in this
gosh.
segment?
Like,
Because there's a
again,
lot
if we're
that
gonna,
came up.
I know, I was just gonna say, if we're gonna do 2-parters, I'm not sure if I should bring this up now or in the next session. However, her bringing up her experience as a child as her parents split, and then her adult conversations with her parents. My story is so crazy with regards to what I witnessed in women. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom for the most part when my parents split. And my mom also had just had cancer. So she had just survived leukemia and cancer treatments. And um, she didn't work right away. So she was a single mom with no job. And I guess my dad was paying child support enough that she didn't have to work at that time. And she decided to go back to school. What happened though is that at some point she was supposed to support herself. And that's where all the money struggles were things that I heard the words, well, your dad isn't giving us enough money, or we don't have the money for that, or those types of things. And one thing I will say about my life with the traditional family unit, although it wasn't all that traditional because my siblings were half siblings, so my dad raised them from 1 and 2. And so my sister was 16 years old, I was 6, and my dad had been her dad since she was 2, and he was very frugal. He wasn't going to buy all the things that she wanted. And so my mom would be telling her, no, he won't let us do that. That was her messaging. Not that it was the right messaging or the wrong messaging, but that was her messaging, is that he won't let them spend that money. So my sister is a pretty strong feminist as a result, because she felt like my mom was held back. She felt like my mom couldn't give her kids what she wanted because this man was in control. And I don't know that that's accurate. My mom didn't work. So in my mom's mind, it was his money, so my mom gave her a message that wasn't necessarily accurate, in my opinion. So my sister, she would say things like, when I grow up, I'm going to have a maid. Don't tell me I have to keep my room clean, like all of these things. And she made them happen. Her adult life, she has a maid. She is a powerful leader in human resources and disability. She's amazing. And it comes from a childhood where she felt like, I'm never going to let a man control my life, right? She manifested some stuff from that. We'll talk about that some other time. But again, I just really think that when we watch moms and we watch our dads, we create what we think life is supposed to be. And it's crazy how much we put together for ourselves on the path that journey that we're on, how much of it we've created as a result of our beliefs.
Totally.
100%. Leanne and I, on our, when we have these conversations, we often will say things like, we are really here to challenge our children. We actually don't say the word challenge. We actually say our kids, because it's their evolution and their job to figure it out. And, innocent children just hearing and seeing and making up stories about themselves. And so communication, I think, is so critical. And again, circling back to the fact that you're talking to your son about what's happening, I kind of do the same thing, to have the conversations. Because also, in my case, my daughter is 11. So, I mean, your daughter is also 11. Their brains are still changing, right? The filters are changing based on how they're growing hormonally or with their adolescent friends, because now they're in this gap of little kids and adult kids and what they're seeing and what they're hearing. And now what she's watching on TV is changing. So all of these inputs are influencing what she's framing in her mind, right? So in my case, I am by myself at home. We don't have any other interaction. I've heard some of her programs. However, all of our kids are in personal development and doing work. So her beliefs they go from one extreme to the other, right? So our job as parents are like roots and wings. So what do I want you to know? That you're loved, right? That's the fundamental. You're loved and you can do anything that you want to do. I just hope that it's motivated by the purest of your thoughts instead of some fallacy that you made up in your brain. So let's have that conversation. In terms of making space, I think that's one thing that I learned just yesterday is I never really created a reality for her to understand that somebody else was going to be next to me at some point. I focused so much on her emotional intelligence, her emotional well-being, making sure that she was adequately supported through the trauma of the separation in our case, because just high level, we were together, had her split up for 2 or 3 years. So I am the recommitted person. We got together, recommitted, and then within a year or two, we were done, and we haven't seen or heard from him. Like, I'm going to say in essence at all. And it'll be 5 years, right? So to now introduce something, I'm getting a whole other reaction, right? And now my lesson is, like, where Leanne, you would have 3 years later made space. Like, I never at all, it wasn't even part of our conversation for 5 years, right? So from 7 to 11, you have no concept of my mother is eventually going to be with somebody and her attention is going to be split. And so the reaction of that adrenaline rush, whether it's
Mhm.
fear or anger, that's where I am in my journey with her, but we're doing really well. Because again, what's the root is like, you're loved, you're heard. It's a lot when you're coming from, you're taking care of everything to even expose the soft side. Like, it's like, you know, for my personality anyway, I know you're all about words of affirmation. Like, Wendy is one of these, like, you walk into her zone, all of your senses are all about love and comfort and security, like on the walls, in the air, in the vibe, what you're
I
hearing. It's
I
all.
have to make you laugh. We just moved and I had a single mom, interesting, who does massage, who financially right now is impacted. And so I hired her to come and give a massage to my brother-in-law because, moving is hard on your body. And she gets here and I'm like, do you want to use my massage table? Do you want me to light candles? Do you want me to put music on? And she's just like, wow, this is amazing. I've never had a client like, like, but I was like, I can make it easy for you. Do you want me to do this? And she was like, I never realized how much I really do love that kind of environment when I'm giving a massage. So I was like, aw.
So sweet.
See, Leanne, she has massage supplies and a room for massage in her house.
That's,
Talk about abundance.
I love
Yeah.
that.
It's such a
So
great space.
something came up for me for you. I got a
Okay, go ahead.
question.
Here it comes. Every time. Go ahead, Wendy. Go ahead.
How old was Celeste when you split the first time?
1.
Okay, so that makes sense. How old was she when you reunited?
3.5.
How was her vocabulary at 3.5?
Oh, stellar. Language
Okay.
is like, she's like in the 98th percentile of language.
Well, the reason I ask is because my son, being a single mom from basically the time he was 4 months old, he could talk in complete sentences at 18 months because he was my only person. I talked to him like he was my, best friend from the time he was 4 months. So like, hey, we're going to get in the car and, oh, the phone's ringing. And, like I just talked to him all day long and he talked back quick. The reason I ask is, what came up for me hearing you, and I don't know why I hadn't thought of it before, is you said that you gave it another go, right? Any chance you remember the messaging that you shared with her saying daddy's coming back, or what messaging did you maybe talk to her about when that reuniting happened that right now could be triggered because there's someone that's newer in, right?
Yeah.
Because for me, I could see where the idea that someone's coming is triggering, well, he could leave at any time and I will never hear from him again. That's what came up for me.
Yeah. So you're right on the money as always. So, and I will tell you, I will own all of this, which is like, thank God I had time to process this because you asked me, like, I probably would be waterfalls, right? So the big lesson for me was I really don't have messaging. Like, I am so busy buffering. So when he re-entered, I basically said to him, this is not about me and you. You need to show up for her. And I was like, and so when I checked in with, professionals and whether they're like, she might not even remember him because it's been so long. And so I just said, well, we'll meet, we're close to the Science Center. And so I was like, we'll meet there. And you wouldn't know this, but Leanne, I don't know if you know the far parking lot all the way to the front of where it is. She
Okay.
saw him. His hair had completely changed,
Yeah.
and she saw him, and after 2 years, bolted right to him. Like it was insane.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
the messaging was, we're gonna go and we may go meet up with him because again, at the time, I couldn't necessarily say that if he said he was going to be somewhere, he would be there. So I didn't want to create this like expectation and then not have him be there, because that would have been even more damaging.
You were buffering and protecting.
Constantly
Yeah.
buffering and protecting. Okay. Constantly buffering and protecting. So, the second time, so when he came back, so after I saw that, I was like, well, then I'm buffering and protecting for no reason, because she clearly just bolted to him. And then it just like, it was fast forward to reconciliation. It wasn't even really like, oh, take her for, because I wasn't going to let her go anywhere by herself with him. Like, it'd been 2 years. Like, I'm not going to do that to a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, right? So it just became all like the three of us all the time, and then it snowballed. And then, what I will say is, the day he left, like we kind of knew that he was going to be leaving in a couple of weeks, and I was like, we need to sit down and talk to her. And he was like, no. So one day he was here, and the next day he moved. Like it was like night and day.
Yeah.
So I own that part of it, right? Like the communication. So when you ask about the communication, all I feel right now is like, I have to own all of that. And how will I change it going forward? So fast forward to where I am today. Again, I started to see somebody on a regular basis. And I was like, we're just going to see one another. We're not like no label, nothing. And I think in the end, I think Leanne, actually it was you. It was like, she's totally calling you guys out that you're in a relationship. Like just say what it is. And I was like, but I'm even in denial, right? So that human part of like overachieving professionally, but like, or like in all other areas, but in this area, because I've been only with a lineage of like primarily single moms, I don't know what I'm doing.
Something just came
I know,
up,
I saw
darling.
you. You're like breathing heavily. I'm like,
yeah, man. This one. Okay, everyone listening, especially you two. There's nothing wrong with not wanting to have a commitment. There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, totally.
However, somewhere in this is your resistance to commitment and her having fear of someone leaving, coming together. Like that's your fear of commitment. So you're saying, oh, this is just, we're just seeing each other, we're this, we're that. And her saying, oh, if he comes more, he's going to leave. And I don't want that. Right. And now he's there more. So it's those two things playing with each other.
I get it. Well, I get a redo. I get a do-over. Let me just say, this is the key to the mindset, people. Okay, is like,
Yeah.
I get where I totally messed up. I get where, and I own that, hey, from 10 years ago to 7 years ago to 3.5 months ago, I could have had very many different approaches and strategies. I did not know. Right. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be gentle to myself.
Absolutely.
And be like, I get a do-over the next time this happens. And right now I'm pouring so much love and quality time and words of affirmation consciously to her to make space for, there is going to be someone at some point, maybe not today. Go ahead.
So again, one thing that didn't come up for me in our previous chats that's coming up now very strong is maybe, even though keep up with the good work, Mama, because I know we know why you're doing that for yourself too, right? Softer you. What if you teach her that it's okay when people leave you?
Yeah, 100%.
Instead
100%.
I don't want you around because you might leave me.
Yeah. So
And
we're in that now. We are in that
yeah,
now because my friend is like, we haven't spoken. And so I have to show her that it's okay, because the first time and the second time I was a complete mess when we split up. I
right.
was like, I'm a
Oh.
But
mom. I don't know what. So
Mhm.
now that we're again just the two of us, not that we weren't three of us, but I mean just like, again, nucleus, two of us, it's okay. Like, I'm actually in a really good mental space. Like, I totally understand how this all, so I feel very grateful. And if there's one thing that we've been talking about in terms of like, how did we get here? It is all about the mindset. And really, you two, I talk to you guys pretty regularly, either independently, or mostly independently, or up until now independently, sorry. And it's having good people around you that will really tell you like it is, like, hey, this is coming up for me, like, is this really true? It could be
Mhm.
an affirmation to say you're on the right path, or like, hey, you're freaking missing this big huge blind spot over here, right? And that's what it really has given, because this is super fresh for me, right? Like, this just literally happened. And historically it would have been more intense, it would have been a longer duration period, and quite frankly the frequency also. Like, we used to have
Yeah.
these breakthroughs so much more. And I think all the work that we're doing for our minds is like creating this pathway from survival to thrive. And
yeah.
beyond thrive is like abundance. I want to have a massage room too.
um,
Yeah.
I it's so crazy to me right now. I Everything that comes up for me about me and what I just said, my fear of abandonment because my mom left me and my dad left me before the age of 11. So I had, two very important people leave me, like full on leave me. So I have a fear of abandonment. I am afraid of abandoning others because I don't ever want to treat someone the way I was treated. So I'm always taking people back. What the heck? Like all these childhood traumas that are leading me in ways that I don't need to be led in often, cases. And then the other part to that I was just saying, hey, let her know that it's okay if someone leaves you. Yes, it's okay if someone leaves you, but that doesn't mean let people go just because you can let them go. So there's like a balance there. It's not like, okay, see ya, wouldn't want to be like when we were kids. And it's I'm okay with you leaving. However, I want you to be here. Um, and that's also okay. It's okay to say it's all right if this person has left. I still wanted them in my life.
Yeah.
And so again, just teaching ourselves that there's other ways than whatever our initial reaction is.
Yeah. Or it can be different from how you want it to look and still
Yeah.
be okay, if not even better, right? So one of the things that is a constant for me is it might be in our best interest that we don't have contact with my ex. If
Mm-hmm.
he's not in the right mind frame or mindset, it could be even more damaging
Mhm.
than the absence would be, right? And that's a hard pill to swallow when you know that you're, and for Wendy, like, when you know consciously your parents made this choice,
Mm-hmm.
she hasn't been able to really grasp that. So, you know, I feel very blessed for you too, really, like that I'm just anchored so well between people who have more experience and just really good intuition on like what is really happening when I'm in the middle of a storm, or I'm,
Mhm.
whatever. And I think that's again another big part of it is you have to have a really strong community. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
Thank you.
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 Thank you.
Yeah,
You
thank you.
also provide a lot of value and strength,
Mhm.
and you are very blunt. So
Yeah,
Like, when you say that, I'm like,
very much so.
oh,
Yeah.
she's like,
time.
I don't have time to not tell you this. Here you go.
Well, now I'm asking. That's why now I'm just like, what is it? Well, so that's the
Yeah.
other thing, right? Is like to really be softer with the approach and really be okay with taking the time. So instead of me like trying to stuff it down her throat, it's like I actually have a plan for the next like 3 weeks until I can get another top up of like professional advice on like what is the next best step for her. And then it's
Mhm.
like just really letting go and not having so much control over stuff is quite magical,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like being okay to like make mistakes. Like I mean, I've mentioned it to you before. We have a book club on like on Saturdays in the afternoon, and the theme of it has really been about coaching and failing and leading um, and just pushing us in our professional lives. But the impact in our homes, I think, has been
Mhm.
a hidden blessing. Like,
Mhm.
all the professional stuff that we do. So I want to take a pause right now because we've covered so much. And I know there's still so much more to cover. And I want to make sure that our team has an appropriate end to part one.